Well, earlier I brought together Mr Sarwar with his fellow Glasgow MSP, the Justice Secretary Hamza Yousaf, to continue our coverage of the 20th anniversary of devolution. Both men told me the problem of Islamophobia has got worse, not better, in the years of Holyrood government. In the 2 decades since the creation of the new Scottish Parliament, more than 300 people have been elected to serve as MSPs, but with the exception of just 4 politicians, they've all been white. So why have there been so few Asian and no black MSPs? And has devolution delivered for the country's ethnic minority communities? When I sat down with Mr Yousaf and Mr Sarwar this morning outside Holyrood, I started by asking about the Parliament's record on ethnic minority representation.
No, it's simply not good enough. In the entire history of the Scottish Parliament, as you said, we've had 4 ethnic minority politicians, all 4 from the city of Glasgow, all 4 from a similar ethnic background, and none of them being women. That's a statistic that's simply not good enough. And actually, if you look at Scottish Westminster representatives, we don't have a single ethnic minority representative from Scotland in the House of Commons. That's a sign that things have, at the very worst, have stagnated or got even worse, which is not good enough.
I assume that you agree with that. What do you think could be done?
I agree entirely with it. I'm sitting here with Anas, who I consider to be a friend as well as a colleague.
As well as political rivals.
As well as political rivals.
Yeah, as I was saying, Hamza, we've not argued since 2014.
Though it might be coming yet, but the point being that even Anas and I, represented as the diverse representatives in that Parliament, are not particularly diverse amongst ourselves. We're 2 ethnic minority from a subcontinent background males in our mid-30s. He is older, in our mid-30s. Actually, if I had looked at where your father comes from and where my father comes from, we come from the same region in Pakistan, let alone diversity within that country. So, even though we are 2 BME representatives, I'm afraid within ourselves there's not much diversity. So what can be done about that? Well, political parties, I have to say, have a huge role to play. My own party included within that. We've got opportunities, of course, with the 2021 elections not too far around the corner. I think we can learn from other parties. I think Anas has put some proposals forward in the past which we should give some serious consideration to. And of course we should learn from where it's been done a lot better.
Is it something that has to be done by the parties? It's not something that we're celebrating 20 years of devolution. It's not something that the Parliament could legislate for or insist on. It has to come from the parties.
Look, I think it's difficult to legislate on because you then get into a different argument around quota systems and all the rest of it, and it looks like you're saying that they don't have the ability, they don't have the talent, and therefore we've got to create legislation to get people from ethnic minority backgrounds into the Parliament. The reality is the talent exists, the interest exists, the opportunities don't, and therefore political parties have got to help create opportunities and create platforms for people from diverse backgrounds to come, be representatives, be candidates, and hopefully come and speak for the whole of Scotland in the Parliament.
When the Parliament was set up, Labour had a system for getting more women in.
Yeah, we had 50-50 twinning. We had to have an equal number of male and female candidates.
Is there a case for some kind of system of, is the word quotas, of some kind of system so that more people from black and minority ethnic backgrounds come in?
Well, I recall when Ian Gray was leader, he made the decision that the party lists that we had to have at the top of those lists either someone that was a woman or from an ethnic minority background, as a way of demonstrating that we wanted to have a more diverse Parliament. I think you can look at systems like that more, but that still gives you the challenges around constituency seats and how we elect more diversity.
Within the SNP?
And ultimately, of course, that system did end up producing more. Ended up producing the same. Yes, absolutely, within the SNP. I've battled with this for a long time in relation to affirmative action or just actually educating, changing process. And I used to be at the point, because of my own example, and I got to where I got to without, any kind of affirmative action, I thought, well, you know what, it's not needed. I actually have a differing view because I'm kind of tired of talking about it. And interestingly, from the SNP's point of view, our number of female MSPs was terribly low, really drastically low. And we talked about creating more opportunities and more mentoring. I'm not saying that doesn't work, but I remember at the conference where we passed a resolution that any SNP MSP that was standing down in the 2016 election be replaced by a female. We were tired of talking, and I think we seriously have to look at those within our own parties. We seriously have to look at those affirmative action, the actions that we can bring forward that will make a substantial change. Because if I'm back at that Parliament, of course, up to the will of the voters in 2021, and there's just 1 or 2 of us again, then we have really, really failed.
You've had a recent experience within your own party, and you've issued some very strong words today after, without going into all the detail, a councillor has been cleared over allegations of racism against you. How do you feel that, what kind of message does that send?
Well, we've talked about the systems that parties have to select candidates. The reality is people will look at the culture of what they see in politics and also decide whether they want to be a candidate. And I think with rising prejudice, with rising of divisive politics, with the stature of what parliamentarians used to be, and I don't mean that in some kind of arrogant sense, I just mean in terms of the pride of doing the job and doing public service isn't what it used to be. I think that's going to discourage people from diverse backgrounds to come forward. And you referenced the case. The sad reality is this: the reason why I'm campaigning against racism and Islamophobia, not just within my own party, but more importantly right across the country, is if even I, as someone who's been on the front line of Scottish Labour politics for 10 years, as a former deputy leader, as a former interim leader, as a former leadership candidate and a shadow cabinet member, don't feel that I can get a fair hearing from an institution like the Labour Party that is meant to be a party rooted in equality, an anti-racist party, then what chance does someone facing discrimination in everyday walks of life, what chance do they have? And that sends a really negative signal to our young people. And I think about my own kids. I look at the opportunities the next generation is going to have, and I look at it with pessimism, and I didn't feel that.
You don't think it's better?
No, I don't. I think we've got better as a chattering class, but I think given the divisive nature, given the more fractious politics that we have, given the us versus them narrative that exists within political parties and between political parties, I think it's going to detract people from wanting to come into politics rather than wanting them to come into politics.
Is that true? Because there's a lot of people who would say things maybe aren't as good as they should be, no doubt, but we have two examples in front of us of people who've done well in politics from ethnic minority communities.
I mean, they've got better at a superficial level, for sure, but I grew up, so I was 16 at the time of 9/11, and I remember some of the Islamophobia we faced during 9/11. I can say without any hesitation that the Islamophobia I face now, both in terms of the frequency of it and also the nature of it, is worse now than it was in the years post 9/11, without a shadow of a doubt. Social media will have an element to play in that it didn't play in post 9/11, but I don't doubt also that we haven't quite made the progress we want to make at an institutional and a structural level. Yes, maybe at a superficial level, but certainly not much below that.
Briefly, if you wouldn't mind, we could discuss this for much longer, but briefly, if you wouldn't mind, is there one thing that we could do to make this better? Well, maybe there isn't, that's too good.
No, change the culture and change the tone. And I think if we recognise that there are some issues that are bigger than party politics, that go beyond party politics, and are issues for all of us to work collectively on, if we recognise some of those issues, and I think challenging prejudice and hate is one of those issues, if we do that and recognise it's a cause for all of us within Scotland's Parliament, then we can make a meaningful difference.
Deeds, not words. It's that famous suffragette slogan. It counts now more than it ever did before. So political parties, and particularly political parties of our size, and I take this as a personal responsibility, we have to, for the next elections coming up, we have to demonstrate a real commitment through our actions, not just our words, to make this place more representative.
Hamza Yusuf, Anna Salah, thank you both very much indeed.